Hello. This is Zach Denny from Zach Denny Real Estate, and today I'm going to do a quick video with some frequently asked questions. Alright, got that nice Royal LePage red, and our first question is, how much can I afford to buy? So I get this relatively often. Unfortunately, it's not one that I can answer. So you either need to talk to your bank, or typically I recommend a mortgage broker. The reason I would recommend a private mortgage broker over a bank is because they look at your application and they'll come up with the best application they can put forward to a bunch of different lenders and different banks based on what you have going for you, versus if you just went and talked to, say, BMO alone, you kind of get what you get. If you go to a broker, they're going to go to BMO, Bank of Nova Scotia, Credit Union, First National, a whole bunch, and try and get you the best terms that they possibly can. And something people often don't do and don't realize is rates are negotiable, and so they'll negotiate on your behalf. So how much can I afford? Bit of a cop-out, but sorry, I can't help you there, but I can recommend a few great mortgage brokers. Okay, what are conditions and how do they work? So when we put in an offer on a property, we typically say, we want this property for X, for $400,000. We're willing to put a deposit, typically around 1% of the value, down to say, like, we're really interested, we're serious about this one. We are. So for $4,000, we would send in and say, we're holding it for now while we do our due diligence. We look into a few things. First one is usually financing. So we go back to the bank, we show them the house you want, the price that we've agreed to, make sure that that works for you. Probably the number one area where deals fall apart is probably at financing. Next one is insurance and inspection. So inspection of the house, inspection of the well, inspection of the septic, all that kind of thing. Anyway, there's a lot of conditions. I have another whole video about conditions, so I won't go into more detail than that. But the one big question is, what happens with my deposit? So if you use a condition to lawfully, legally back out of a property, and by that I mean we had a financing condition and you weren't able to get it, so we had to back out, or the inspection went terribly, the foundation's cracked and the roof is leaking, or backing out. If you legally use your conditions properly, then we can walk away and we get your deposit back, no questions asked. The only time a deposit is usually kept is when somebody has removed all their conditions. They said 100% we're good to go, and then for some reason towards the end of the deal, when it's about to change hands, they have to back out. Another good one, how long does it typically take? Or for buyers, how long should we put to close? So typically 60, 90, 120 days. Really depends on the situation. Like a really quick sale would be like, I don't know, 40 days, maybe 50 days. A really long one might be 4 or 5 months. And if it's that long, it's probably because the buyers also have to sell their own home before they can buy this one, so they need time to get that whole thing sorted out. I'll answer another question on that one in a couple minutes. How much do I need to pay my realtor, and what about my mortgage broker? What do I have to pay them? I'll start with mortgage broker because that's nice and easy. You don't pay them. The lender pays them. So if you go to a broker and then that broker asks around, the best possible bank and application for you is Bank of Nova Scotia. When they bring you to Bank of Nova Scotia, Bank of Nova Scotia pays them. You don't pay them anything. Realtor, this can vary. It's between a realtor and their client to negotiate what their commission is. Typically, in PEI anyways, the sellers pay both their selling realtor's commission and also the buying realtor's commission. That can be anything from 1% to 10%, depending on what they negotiate. I would say in the past 6 months, the one that I've seen the most common, but it's not a strict one, would be in the 4 to 5% range, and then that gets cut in half between the two realtors. But again, typically it's the seller of the home that pays both realtors. So if you're buying, you actually don't have to pay your realtor. What are closing costs on a transaction? And what even are closing costs? So when a transaction goes through, there's a few extra costs at the end aside from just your down payment. So let's go back to the $400,000. you have your 5% down, so your 20,000 that you're putting down on the property. Then you also have legal fees. You might have to fill up the oil tank. You might have inspection costs, potentially appraisal costs, but that's not very common anymore. Your first insurance and utility payments, all that kind of stuff. Any statements of adjustments through the lawyers. Oh yeah, and the big one is land transfer tax. This one depends a lot on your personal situation because first-time home buyers can get rebates and they can get some of that stuff back to them as encouraging them to buy and making it a bit easier. But the thing I've been told that lenders want to see in your bank account is about 1.7-ish% of the purchase price. So going back to the 400,000, that would be about $7,000 extra on top of the 20,000 down payment. If it were me, I would probably say $400,000 house. I want to have about 30,000 roughly in my bank account or in my RRSP or whatever that I'm pulling from to buy that property. How do I know how much to list my house for? Well, you should have a good realtor for one, and they'll be able to advise you on this. They do what's called a CMA, a comparative market analysis. So they'll look around in the city. If you're in Charlottetown, they'll check how many bedrooms you have, what's your square footage, what's your bathrooms, do you have a garage, how modern is it, all these types of questions they ask, and then they try to compare in the area and see what other things are selling for. Not necessarily what other things are listed for, what other things are selling for. Because you could have, the exact same house down the street that's listed for $100,000 more than it should be, but it's been sitting there for a year and a half. So you wouldn't want to use that one in your CMA. So you look around at the comparable ones and you try and gauge, and a good realtor will give you a range of roughly what you should list for and how long it might take to get an offer. But the key is, don't lock that in, because say you come to an agreement, in the $400,000 house example, say instead we're selling and we put it up at $450 because we thought it might go for that. 3 months and not a person is interested. Well, we have to have a little bit of flexibility there, see that the market isn't moving and that people aren't liking what they're seeing with your house, and then we might have to adjust. So a good realtor can advise you on all that type of stuff. Is there anything I should do before I list my house to sell it? That's a pretty loaded question. It depends a lot on your house and on your personal situation. Again, your personal realtor should be able to advise you on that and give you some recommendations. The big thing I would say is if you were planning to do anything anyway in terms of like painting or renovations or anything like that, it might be worth doing, but definitely depends project to project. If you're halfway through one of those renovations or projects, I would definitely wrap that one up as much as you possibly can. A buyer is going to want to come in and have it at least complete and not be taking over whatever project you got halfway through. This is a tricky one. If I need to list my house and sell it before I can buy a new one, what should I do? So we're talking about the person who's trying to upgrade from maybe their starter home to their more long-term home. Opinions from realtors will really vary on this one, and your personal situation holds a lot of weight with it. So again, find a good realtor. They'll be able to help and provide specific advice to you. Generally speaking, my approach is if you want to be really competitive when you go to buy the next house, you should try and have your house either listed or really close to listed. Because your financing often, unless you make a lot of money, will not get approved unless your house is firm before you can go to the new one and have a firm deal on that one. So all that to say, from my perspective, it gives me a lot of bargaining power to help you buy the next one, get the best possible deal, not miss out on the house. If you really like the next one, it gives me a lot of strength as your realtor buying if we're already well along the process of selling your other home. It's much harder to come to a new great upgrader home that you want, go to the realtor, say, we're super interested, we want this one, we just have to sell ours first, and then they ask, oh, okay, great, how far along are you in the process? Is it listed? Can I see the photos? And we say, we we haven't even started yet. We don't know what we're going to ask. Maybe it'll be up in the next couple of weeks. That's a pretty tough sell. So I would just say if you want to be competitive, you want to find your next home and you want it to be great, then just try and get as far along that process as you can. But it's definitely a balance depending on your personal situation. Well, that is it for frequently asked questions. I thought with the market seeming to pick up and a lot of people reaching out to me over the past couple months, either looking to get an idea of what their property would sell for or starting to think, they want to get back into the market and buy from being a rental or buy and upgrade, I thought I would just post a quick video with a lot of the conversations I've had with some of my clients. So I hope it is beneficial to you. And as I record this, it is Easter Friday tomorrow. So I hope you have a great holiday with your family and a great Easter weekend.